I don't have to be a state citizen to do that, just an American national. And so I hope to find out what it means to stand up your militia builder by attending that meeting.
All right, we can explain that to you right here.
Okay.
Standing up the militia pillar means you find someone who's willing to be the chair of the militia, and that's Bob Roerich. And then you have regular meetings, even if it's once a month, and you start making plans to organize for natural disasters or public needs like that. And now your militia has stood up. And you can also, well, I suppose you can do other little things, but that's the basic, and that's all that's required. You might want to notify all the people of militia age that the militia has now stood up, and here's where to come with questions or suggestions how to perform these functions the militia performs. Sandbagging in case of flood, if there's a famine or something, helping with distribution of food, if there's a drought, helping bring water, those sorts of things. That's what we deal with in the militia, because the militia are two things. That's the main militia. That's everybody can participate in that. The militia that's actually defense with guns and all that stuff, that's a very small part of militia function, because our states won't be attacked that often, or our counties even. There'll be county level militias and state level. So it's more for the public, taking care of the public need in times of need. And perhaps if Doc or anybody else has an idea that can expand on that, go ahead. I yield.
Okay, this Doc. The only thing I would add is Anna says it's built on the same concept of Switzerland. And in Switzerland, everyone at, I don't know what the age is, 18 or 19, has to learn to shoot a gun, has to be part of their militia. It's just everybody, unless of course there's some physical disability, but it's just she said it's our militia will be patterned very much after the Swiss, what the Swiss have been doing for years. That might be a place to look at, to see what they're doing.
May I?
Yeah, please.
I did look into the Swiss system a couple years back. They don't have counties, they have cantons, C-A-N-T-O-N-S. And they act as a county, and I believe it's when you finish high school. You have 2 years of service in the capacity of a reserve. It's not full time. But in that time, you learn procedures for military operations. You learn to take care of and service and maintain and fire a gun. And they're pretty nice assault weapon type, what they call assault weapons, probably semi-automatic. And then when they finish their time of service, they take that gun home with them and plenty of ammo. Every single person, man or woman, in Switzerland has a gun at home that they know how to use. That's extremely powerful, even in a small country like Switzerland. So that's how they operate. And of course, they are operating on a level of, flood response and all the other things that we talked about, earthquake, whatever it is, landslides. But every single person in there knows how to use a gun, and they have it at home in the closet near their front door in a closet or something, and plenty of ammo if the call ever comes. I yield.
May I?
I suppose. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I'd like to make some comments if possible. So let me know when it's a good time.
Go ahead.
Now, I'm new to Education and Outreach Committee. However, I want to devote all I have to our efforts. And in my past repertoire, I was married to a family member here whose cousin runs the United States Concealed Carry Association, and some of you may have some knowledge about them. What they do is they provide a wide range of services for people who want to be involved in defensive postures with firearms. So I would put that out there that USCCA is a big resource, but maybe we have people in the assembly that know better than that. And so I yield with that comment.
Any comments? Well, I could respond. I'm familiar with that organization. I haven't used them, and I did have a concealed carry permit of my own, which expired, and I haven't bothered to reinstate it because that would be dabbling in the corporate de facto government world. We don't require those. Most of us who are concerned about that have made our declaration of lifetime concealed or open carry weapon guns, and we have it. It's a lifetime. It's owed to us, and we've just put it out there in the public record. Yeah, I have this. I've declared this, and that. And I think the affirmation is like, I'll use it responsibly for the public good and stuff like that. But guess what, you guys? I'm going to carry a gun whenever I want, wherever I want. So we're up on that as far as our and on the assembly side, as far as our paperwork, we claim it without question.
I'd like to comment on that follow-up to Scott's comment.
Please.
Now, as for militia having the training and preparedness for armaments, I'm one who has all those same beliefs, but I am also one who does not have active experience with doing such things since my middle teen years with a father who was an avid hunter and had a lot of firearm resources. But he did not really take the time to teach me the mindset required in having a firearm and what to do in a moment's notice in a situation where you find yourself needing to be armed and defend yourself. And so I've been doing what I can in terms of homework in this regard and what to buy in terms of the right proper firearm and tactical gear and so forth. And that's why I bring up USCCA, because for a very inexpensive fee, they provide such a wide degree of training, whether or not you follow the entire pathway with them. So what I would submit to the Assembly is we have some kind of resource that brings the militia well-equipped in the knowledge and preparation required for these regards, so we don't just have people flying off. And something else USCCA does is provide an insurance policy for anyone who has to take self-defense. And so, plus all the full backing. And yes, of course, that applies to the statutory citizen who's doesn't fully appreciate what the Second Amendment does for us outside of the statutory system. With that, I yield.
All right. Thank you. We would not enter into the insurance offering, but we can certainly avail ourselves of the training, because they do excellent training in safety and the handling of guns and stuff like that. I don't say firearms because that's limiting in weaponry of any kind. And we could certainly make a deal with them. And in that process, we could actually explain to them why we don't need the other accoutrement. We'd have to look down the menu and say, we don't need this, we don't need that, but we would love to have this training so our people handle them safely, store them safely, clean them, know all this stuff. So definitely we'll have training so that people are responsible for these. It's one of the things we affirm when we make our concealed and open carry affirmation. Declaration, I should say. So, yes, we certainly use our expertise in that way. I yield.
May I?
Yes, please.
So, in looking at what resources are now available about standing up the militia assembly, there is a wide range of bullet point items, and if our mindset is really serving our neighbors, serving our community, serving our township, having our home equipped with some basic tools like rakes and shovels and chainsaws and the things that are within our skills of using our hands, and being of the mindset of sandbagging if there's a flood, or cutting down trees if there's a heavy storm, or bringing food supplies to people when there's some kind of a natural disaster. And we know that the de facto has an awful lot of resources available, but they're not as fast of a first response as we are amongst our neighborhood. And that really boils down to the here and now of what at least what I gather from the approach of a state militia. And with that, I yield.
Yes, these are all good items, and many of us have thought about them, and I'm glad you bring them up. But that discussion really belongs in the militia committee meetings. We need to focus more on education here. But, I mean, yeah, it's all very valuable. We have to do this stuff. But when you get to militia, a lot of that relies on resources which are not quite available to us yet, but will soon be. We'll have to set up storage areas around the state, even armories and, water and different tool facilities, sandbagging warehouses, where we have all these bags ready to be, filled with sand if necessary. So, yeah, it's all good stuff. I guess we just wanted to let Betty know that there's, that the militia is not that spooky of a deal to set up. It's not so big deal. The one that's going to take more work is the courts. So that's why kind of we focus there on the courts. But it's all good information.
May I also wanted to just mention, Jim, that they do have the Peacekeeping Task Force. So there's CERT training too that has come around. So there are other resources out there to help with safety or emergency care kind of training, as well as self-defense. So the Peacekeeping Task Force, they are on Mattermost. If you've been on there at all, I think it's going away. So it'll be the direct management server where we probably gather that information. But they do have trainings that do come around to the different states. So I yield.
Good point. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, go ahead, Betty.
Before Kathy got on, I told him I've signed up to be American National Liaison Person to the PKTF. And so they have a March 2nd meeting, so I plan on asking questions at that time. Now, I suppose I should contact Bob Rorick to tell him that I'm going to do that, since he's the chair of the militia. Could somebody send me Bob Rorick's email so I can contact him? I yield.
I'm going to look to see if I have Bob. Robert? Rorick? I don't believe I have his email.
Yeah, I got it. I was talking, but I was muted. I can send it to her.
Is it a 0220591?
It might be. That's his birth date, I think. His born date.
I have Robert in my email, but it doesn't say who it is. And I think I have emailed with him when we've done our air booths and stuff.
Yeah.
I talk to him on the phone more than I email with him, so.
Yeah. No, that's what it is.
Okay.
He's got the 6 numbers of his nativity, so that would be it.
All right. Well, so you're sending it. I won't. Yep. Go ahead, Betty.
Jim, would you be interested in being part of a militia committee? I yield.
No, Betty, please say the committee name again.
I don't know, it's got a name. It's just militia committee. I'm making it up. A militia committee.
I would have to say at this early stage, I would have to decline due to other kinds of things that I'm attempting to accomplish. But I will put that out there for a future date. And thank you for offering.
Sure. May I?
Yeah, Betty, could you tell me your email?
Oh, you sent me stuff. It's my last name at gmail.com.
Yeah, it's your last name that's always the difficult thing.
CH.
CH.
Okay, thanks.
You got it?
I'm sure it'll come. CH didn't bring it up.
CHRU.
That might. That did it. CHRU did it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, may I?
Please.
So, Doc, after you explained what all the different roles were needed for putting up the court, did you get any feedback that people wanted to do those roles? I yelled.
There I got it. Had trouble. Oh, yeah, I was trying to unmute the wrong one. Okay. I'm sorry, Betty. I didn't get your question. I don't know if it was just me. Did anyone else get it? It was kind of garbled.
Okay, I'll try again. Did anybody get back to you wanting to do those roles after you explained them at the Q&A? I yield.
Did anyone get back to me about the roles of?
Yeah,
That's right.
you explained
Mock
to me.
trial. Mock trial.
Oh, no one's said anything to me. What we're going to do tomorrow night, Thursday night, is going to be another presentation, this time going over we went over the offices. This week, we're going over the forms. And I again will put out a call for people to volunteer to step up to fill those offices, because and like I always say, if we don't get that done, nothing else that we've done will be of any value. Everything hinges on getting our courts established and operational. It's really that simple. We will have no God-given rights, no birthright of land that we can exercise until we have our courts up. We'll continue to be dragged into Admiralty, Maritime, and Air courts. It's essential. So I'll make that point. Chester says he will too, but we're at he might even have to send out an email to everybody saying, "Hey, folks, this is either we get involved, or we might as well not expect to have any fruit from our labors." So, yeah, and the mock trial is just the beginning. I mean, everybody will have to, be available for jury duty as needed. There won't be that much initially. I mean, down the road there will be, but we'll have a much bigger pool of people to draw from. But initially, I think it's at least to have the chairs filled, the offices occupied, is what's most essential. To be capable of doing court processes is, even if we don't have anything to do, which would be wonderful. But it'll come down to a point where if somebody in the assembly gets us, hauled into their courts, we can retrieve them and say, no, they're our jurisdiction. Release them to our courts. We'll deal with it. And if being a common law court, the vast majority of things that they're hauled into the admiralty courts aren't crimes in our system. So if no one's injured, if there's no injury, there is no crime. We'll try them and let them go. It's really that simple. I hope it will be anyway. It should be. I yield.
May I?
Please.
Doc, that's wonderful to have you focus on our courts, and that is something that I have as my front and center in terms of things I've read already about our assembly. And now I want to open with a question or perhaps a list of questions specific to our courts. And so you may, Doc, I'm going to direct these to you or whomever wants to comment. You may have already fielded a list of Q&A about our courts, and now tonight would be my first time to delve that direction. And the questions come in the form of venue and procedure and the offices to be occupied, the chairs to fill, and when and how we get the courts up, and do we already have a judicial committee, and those kinds of things. You see where I'm going, Doc, and with that, I yield.
Okay, well, what we did last time, last Thursday, was went through a whole list of all the offices and what their job is. Let me see if I can find it. I can actually do a screen share. Oh boy.
Ooh, that's pretty.
Yeah. Well, now you see, it's going to take a long time to find it because it looks like my real desk. Well, let's just try to go by memory. We're back. Well, we have the justices. We call them justices there's justice of the peace on the county. There's justice is the state court level. It's only a judge if it's international controversy. There's the clerk who decides, and Chris Philippe's already filling that chair. That one is full. I'm a justice of the peace and the justice and the coroner, only because when we first started rebuilding the assembly, we didn't have very many people, so we had to take a lot of jobs because we haven't been actually doing those things. I'm just I call myself a placeholder at this point. I would we'll have to have other people take some of those jobs. We'll need more than one of those jobs. Actually, when it comes to justice of the peace, all 87 counties will need their justice of the peace as well as their sheriff. I mean, you do have to have a sheriff. But I was getting back to the clerk. The clerk's the one who determines what kind of case it is, what the jurisdiction.
Doc, you're really garbled.
Okay, well, that's my computer. How about now?
Very good.
Good? All right.
Yeah, it's all good,
Yeah.
Doc.
I don't know if the thing gets overheated or what, but it'll work just fine, and then it doesn't.
We see your screen. Are you trying to show us something?
I can't hear you.
Oh, I see your screen. Are you showing us something?
Oh, no, I was going to. I'll shut that off.
Wait, were you going to go to where the list of offices are for the General Assembly?
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
That's what I was looking for, but you know, I don't know where it is. You know, it's I'd have to dig around for a few minutes to find it. But anyway, we have a bondsman who is in charge of the bonds. If there's a bond, the bondsman in our system is the bailiff in the Admiralty Maritime system. There's also functions in the courtroom as a directing traffic, helping people if there's kind of as the first aid individual on duty. What else, Scott?
May I?
A what?
May I? I just have a question. So I know you're a state citizen via justice. I know Chris Phillippe is a state citizen for the court clerk. The bondsman, does he have to be a state citizen? I yield.
I don't know. I think so. I believe so. I do not know for sure, though.
May I?
Yeah, please.
In terms of the court, please delineate what roles can be filled by a state national versus a state citizen.
Without my cheat sheets, I really would only be guessing.
Wonderful. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's the kind of thing that I want to start creating in our educational platform for the purpose of educating our judicial committees on procedures and practices and routines and documents.
Yeah, I can see your email on your icon or whatever you call it, your identification. I will. You got it. But I can send you. It's right out of the General Assembly Handbook. And
All right.
in fact,
I have that.
it should have been emailed to you.
I do have the General Assembly Handbook, but I have Anna's version.
Well, that's the version. But this was just an excerpt from it for the General Assembly that I did some highlighting on because I didn't have time to read the whole book, but it was during the meeting, so I just took the high points of what each job entailed. That's basically all we got covered last Thursday. Tomorrow night will be about the forms, the very specific forms that we use. Our court process, that I can explain. It starts out with you just try to get the people to talk. A phone call or a lunch meeting or just the two of them. Try to see if they can't resolve it just talking it over and clearing the air. If that doesn't work, then it goes to mediation, and this is called exhausting your administrative remedies. You try to get it in our system it's called a claimant, not a plaintiff. A plaintiff is the C jurisdiction. We have claimants who make claim. And then so you get the claimant and the defendant together and see if they can't just talk it out, and then you go to arbitration. There we go.
He who asserts must prove.
Yeah, the accused is innocent until proven guilty, especially in our system. And then if it does go to the court system after all, the other, then it's, the forms, arbitration steps, all of these forms give, if we can send this to you and you can look it over. It literally
Please, yes,
explains
please.
the whole process. And that's what I'm going to be going over this tomorrow night.
Thank you. It's good to see Minnesota Assembly's seals and banners on these forms.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, can you slide it down a little so I can see that seal? That seal has you can barely see it, but there's a Minnesota outline on it, and we're not going to. We're changing the seal. Anna said not to put the state emblem on the seal, but this is something Chris and I did about 6 months ago, and Chris did 80% of it at least. He's the one who put these seals together and stuff. But we did what we knew at the time, but we've since had some more information, and he's totally on top of that. So those will be corrected before we use them.
Right. Both of those seals that are showing on the screen, the arbitration step 2. So I know for sure the date is going to come off the Minnesota Assembly seal that we have up on the corner.
Yep.
Land and soil. That's coming off. I'm not sure what other changes will be made, but right now that we know.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so Doc, you're talking about the red one in the center,
the stamp. Yeah. The court seal itself is supposed to be just a white flag, a flag of truce.
So no Minnesota in there.
Nope. But that's Chris is working on all that.
Okay, yeah.
He spent a lot of time making those seals. I mean, literally.
Yeah. He sends it to our daughter Kate because she's a graphic designer, so she's been doing.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll see it. So yeah, those are up there just for what we have been using. Right now, nothing has been trademarked and published and recorded for the assembly yet, as far as our official seals. So we're still working on that.
May I? Ooh.
Yeah.
I just emailed everybody Chris's description of the officers and the officers' offices and officers of the court that he put out very recently, just a few days ago. You might want to look at it. It's an attachment to an email. It's a PDF. I sent it to everybody present.
Is that the one? It's like 14 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think maybe we should send. Oh, that's the offices.
Offices and officers and job descriptions, I believe.
Okay. I wonder if we should be sending these forms out to everybody. Probably not. They can access I did a screen share to show them how to find them on the website, and I'll do that again tomorrow. I'll go right from the home page and, click the access button to get into these forms. I guess anybody who's interested can certainly download them because they're all downloadable.
Question about the forms.
Go ahead.
Do the forms tell where they are downloadable from? I yield.
I'll have to go look. I'll just take a look.
Thank you.
In fact, why don't I just do that? I'll go through the. Here's what I'll be doing tomorrow. Okay. Can I do the screen share?
Why not?
Well, because I think somebody else is right now.
Oh, not me. I don't even know how to do that.
Kathleen has it.
Okay. Well, man, I'm going in circles here. Let's see. View. Gallery view. Okay, Kathleen. Oh, thank you. And I'm going to put screen share up.
You're up now, Doc.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it on. So what I have to do is, it's supposed to show my desktop. Oh, I suppose this is my desktop. Let me take this down. Okay, now do you see this? You see the eagle?
Yes.
The home. Okay, we're on the home page of the Minnesota Assembly. Then we go over here to the More tab. Click the More tab and go down to Jural Assembly. Court forms. All I have to do is sign in. Okay. This is the court forms. Self-governance step 1. I'm not going to go through them all because that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. It'll take an hour. But here we have the 5 forms for step 1. The claims, the arbitration hearing request form, the arbitration claim form, the invitation rebuttal form, the witness testimony form, and it's right here. Do you see where it says download? Are you seeing the page I'm on?
Yes.
Yep. Well,
Right. Just click on the download, and you'll download all of these forms. And then there's step 2 is arbitration. And again, the forms, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of these. And you can download them right here, all 7. And then the court itself, we call it the living court, but that's our court. And that's step 3. And it says who does what. The clerk calls to order the case. The bondsman accused affirmation of truth. He requires the accused to give an affirmation of a truthful testimony. Very simple little couple questions. But anyway, and here's the forms, the jural duty invitation, the nullification orders, and if it's a criminal case, the incident reports. Then here we have the step 4, where we're dealing with the jury trial and all of the forms necessary for that, all downloadable. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, and how to become a Minnesota state citizen. So that's basically what we'll be going over tomorrow night. Jim, can you get in to the Jural Assembly? Do you have your password?
Yes, Doc. I'm following right along with you under my sign on to the Assembly's website.
Oh, you signed on. You got, okay. Well, some people are papered up, but they didn't get their their access code, which I guess you have to get that from Nicole.
Yes.
But she's real. I mean, she'll get it to you within a day if you request it, if you need it. So, anyway.
I think he has it already, I think, Doc.
Yeah, I know he does. I'm just saying that that isn't an issue if you do need it. So, I'm back.
She was fast. Just like you said, she was very quick with getting me into the system.
There's only one thing on that, excuse me, that top of that whole system of the forms there's 5 people's portraits in there. I don't recognize a one of them. We got to get our people in there.
We'll get your mug in there.
No, yours, Doc.
No.
You have that, wisdom of the ages look.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Give me a break. Yeah, we could put Jerry Williams in there and Shane. Shane, what's the... Go ahead.
So, okay, I want to go back to Jim's presentation about his education tools that he's going to share with us. I want to know a little bit more about, you said that it's something that the universities use or they've developed a way to be able to network or whatever that is, but we want to be very careful not to go into a system that exposes, or that we would have to subscribe or contract with or anything like that. I'm just wondering if you have more information on those aspects of it. I yield.
Yes, I do. May I have the floor for a period of time here?
Sure. Did you need to screen share?
I would screen share, but what's the hotkey and so forth for me to do a screen share?
Well, I'm trying to figure out if I can allow you, because Doc and I are both hosts in here. Doc is the presenter. I am a host, and when I click on you, I can switch presenters. So I'll try doing that to see if it can go to your computer.
Okay, right now my screen is showing me Doc's system with a paused meeting screen.
Yep, I'm going to switch it to you. You want to switch presenter? I'm going yes. So now you can present. You go ahead and try it, and I will yield.
All right. I have 5 screens on my computer, so I've got to pick which one.
You're on.
Okay, I'm just trying to determine which one of my browser tabs is going to come through to you.
I see on there now the Minnesota Assembly of our Land and Soil Jurisdiction based upon the public law.
I've got a system here that I'm going to actually log out of, and I'm going to come down to you all from a very high-level overview of what we have here. And let's start with Kathy's question about us getting looped into something that's going to be undesirable. Now, what I have put together is an open source freeware system where we, as the owners of this system, we now get to establish all of those parameters as if we owned the whole system, soup to nuts, lock, stock, and barrel, A to Z, 1 to 10. It's fully our own platform, as hosted. on the type of hosting environment that I have. I've studied this long enough to know that the rug is not going to get pulled out from under us in any way, shape, or form, and we get to establish every parameter about this system. And for example, what I've highlighted in here today was me just experimenting. The system is what I call at the prototype stage for assembly and outreach type of matters. I have not shown this to anyone in our assembly as of yet, but I have experienced the system across 13 versions of the software over 15 years' time. Enough to know that it's backed by expert talent, and it gives me the ability as a system administrator and a technical analyst to have a fairly easy life. I don't have to program in the source code, but I can, and it's there for me, and I can operate the system at the deep level, the file system server level, and this is a internet shared file server system that I'm running. And you notice the name in the upper left corner that says cPanel. That is brought to me through my hosting company, and I'm going to switch there. My hosting company gives me a dashboard, and I am in charge of everything beneath the dashboard. And what I have on my system is my web server, which is homiacsystems.net, and I am in charge of everything at this layer. I don't have a membership or a group or some governing authority that's telling me how to set up my system. So this is what I can bring forward to the assembly as the underpinnings of a $100 per year internet server capability. And at that capability, I go into a piece of software that comes with my system that's called the Softaculous Applications Installer. And from this vantage point, I found the educational software system, which is known as Moodle. You see me highlighting the word Moodle there? And Moodle is a course management system that's also known as a virtual learning management system, and it's a free web application that educators can use to create effective online learning websites. So what I now have is a system that allows me to have a logon, and what you're seeing here is all generated by me filling in the blanks on various screens and clicking save to make the updates that you now see. And so at this stage of logging in, I get to select what permission level that I log in with to the system. When I log on with my user level to the system, I get to set all the parameters of the entire system because I'm running at the system administrator level. I get to set the roles and responsibilities and groups and all the parameters. However, I don't want to just blindly do that. What I would like to do is propose to our committee, the Education and Tech Committee, that we take an active role in thinking in these terms now that we can have a courseware system, and let's drill down into the known knowledge that our assembly has already amassed, and let's determine where we focus first on putting education courseware together specifically for assembly members. And so what I would submit to you is assembly members getting ourselves up to speed with what we're doing as an assembly is a whole lot of process and procedure that we can read and study. But I would submit to you that we can not only read and study, but we can test our understanding. We can make curriculums that send us an email to say, oh, by the way, you've got assignment number 2 in your course to finish. If you'd like to finish it, click here. And to have that ability to interact with this system with some level of digital administrative capability for the system to help you better yourself. And that, in essence, is what Moodle is as a free open source software system that's free to us. I'm not asking for money. There are consultants that put Moodle systems together, and the capability of this system pushes $150,000 if I was billing you in outright charges for the system. And the whole background of this system approaches into the hundreds of millions of dollars in value that's in this technology platform. And this came about by people saying, we're fed up with education not being tailorable by anybody who wants to educate anybody on any topic. So this system says, whatever you want to teach, whatever curriculum you want to establish, this is a powerful web framework that gives you capability for every user that logs in to tailor their own user interface to them, so that you can add modules and blocks that you see every time you log on. You can see your calendar and schedule of what events that you have coming up. If you want to schedule some kind of a new event, you get to be the defining role of what your event is all about and who's invited. And if you're going to set up an event for your entire class full of students, they all get informed on it. So it really does something multiple user. It keeps everybody involved and keeps everybody with a two-way street of a blogging type environment. That's what this is. It's like a blog. But yet, when it's a secured environment that it is now, it does not just let John Q. Public log in and see what you're doing in your active courseware. It blocks anybody unless they've got the credential. And we, as the Education and Outreach Committee, can define the credential, define the group, define the curriculum, define the topics, define the study. We can define what kinds of study material get added. We can put in web links and Wikipedias and videos and audios, and we can make a education curriculum that is something that's intuitive and rich content and dynamic on a platform such as this. And so now, with that kind of few minutes to get started, I'd like to open it up for some questions and answers. And I yield.
May I?
Yes, Betty, go ahead.
So I heard Anna talk about that they're going to get a new network. It's going to be completely separate from Microsoft. And she mentioned the Linux. So how does this fit in with that? I yield.
Fabulous question. What this system is step number 1 is the Linux or Linux operating system, which is not Microsoft. Microsoft has very powerful usable systems across all of industry, but what they are built on is what's known as a proprietary closed source model. You do not have the ability to edit the source code with Microsoft platforms. However, with the Linux or Linux platforms, we as system administrators and technologists have those capabilities. And there's layers on top of the Linux system, and if Anna wants to go in that direction, it's a fabulous idea. I recommend it. And there's very many skilled professionals with IT credentials that are building and configuring these type of platforms. And what I have in front of us is exactly that, but so much work is done for us already. Now, on top of Linux, there is a web server layer that is known as the Apache. And some people in computer speak know just exactly what that means. On top of Apache runs the WordPress system, which is what my hosting company is. And on top of the WordPress system runs the cPanel system, which is what my internet server architecture layer is that gives me the tool sets. And on top of the cPanel is the software application layers that are made available. And this entire system, Betty, is all referred to as what is your stack. And that's like your stack of cards, your deck. How is your deck stacked? And in essence, that's what it is on the Linux operating system. We're mirrored across many regions and running many automated tools to keep the system secure against internet threats and powerful for our purposes. With that, I yield.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
So this has nothing to. It sounds like nothing to do with the cloud, but I might have the last question anyway. Nothing to do with the cloud, right?
We do not have to sign on to a cloud per se to utilize this layer. But it is a file server system that is professionally managed inside of a company atmosphere. And what they want to do is put a part of their system into a cloud environment for a number of reasons, but it does not require all of our end users to be savvy or aware of what the cloud is. And so we said, if you're going to put us in a cloud, we want two-way full encryption, and it's been guaranteed to us that everything that goes across the wire carries an encryption token. So that makes it exceedingly difficult for any purposeful internet traffic to try to interfere. And so if you've got specific detailed questions about the cloud environment, I'm happy to address those. And with that, I yield. Now, one thing I would like to do is take people through some various screens. But before I do, I want to see if there's any other questions or comments, or if we should table this discussion for any other period of time. And I'll take that back to Kathleen or Doc as our hosts.
I'm all for it, I guess. How about you, Scott? How about you, Kathleen? What's the verdict?
I'm sorry, Doc. Your vocals are cutting you again.
I'm willing. Scott here. Yeah.
Willing for me to do some additional clicking in here?
Yeah, Scott's ready. It's fine with me. We didn't hear from Kathleen, but she's outvoted anyway, even if she said so. Go ahead.
I've got a screen that's larger than most of yours, so I'm going to readjust the size of my panel here. And what I'm going to do is ask you if you're seeing my panel in its full width at this time. And at this moment, I'm aiming my pointer over something that says edit mode, and I'd like to know if you're seeing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
And now I'm aiming my pointer over something that says assembly, education, and outreach. And are you seeing that?
Yes.
All right. What I'm able to do inside of the system is make many roles for all of us. But in essence, to get this running, I start with certain roles and certain permissions. And when I define roles, I can define the role of a manager or a course creator, a teacher, a non-editing teacher, a student, a guest, an authenticated users on a site home, and I can add new roles that I create for whatever purpose. And along with a role, I can make permissions. And so I would submit to you that if you are in this system at a level of manager or higher, I would rather not have you just start doing those kind of things until you get your hands around the basics of creating a course and uploading some kind of content into your course. And I would also say that when you're on these screens and you go into the edit mode, what that does is let you interface with certain content on the screen to actually edit content signified by the pencil icon that would appear if you were going to edit such content. So, for example, to begin, I made a course that I titled Minnesota Assembly Functions. And when I'm in edit mode, every pencil lets me edit. So, for example, General Assembly is now editable, and if I type something and press enter, you see how the name changed? That concept of editing this system works generally throughout the entire system. So if you've got the rights to do some kind of editing in the system, I want your careful planning so that you don't have to do rework. And so what we have here under assembly functions is General Assembly. And if I expand General Assembly, this is where all content that we've already got regarding our General Assembly, content that can train assembly members, can be put in here and utilized on an interactive basis by somebody who's just a casual student, somebody who enrolls in the course and wants to learn about General Assembly and what we're about and what our assignments are, what kinds of books to read, what's on Anna's website, what's Wikipedia talk about General Assemblies. You see what I'm saying? And so for today, I did not put all of that extra learning material there, but I'm just illustrating to you that the capability is right here under our fingertips in this system. And so with that, I'll yield and I'll take any questions about what we're seeing on the screen so far.
May I?
Yes. Go ahead, Betty.
So many times when we Google something, we don't know the...
Betty, your audio is not working.
Oh. Does it work now?
Yes.
So many times when we work with Google, we're not really getting the true... They change it, Google. Now, is there another way to get information that is... years ago, they had like Nexus, I think it was. Wasn't it?
Yes, there was many search engines in the past.
Okay, so when you have this type of setup, because I mean Google only you got Google Chrome, it only lets you get at that stuff. Does this system let you get at more search engines? Is that what you call it? I yield.
Great question. Go ahead.
I think this system, Betty, that he's making is not a search engine. We will put everything in there that's correct, but if you want a search engine to find information on the internet, that would be a different issue entirely, I believe. What say you, Jim?
Yes. What we are doing is becoming what is known as a content provider. And so we become the authors and the creators and the indexers of knowledge that we architect to put in these roles. And we can, if we want, make our content findable by search engines. But on the same token, we can stop search engines from being able to find our content. And I do that at the source code level of our system by configuring a file that is known as the robots.txt. And if I open up that file, I go inside here and I tell the robots to disallow any traffic. So I'm going to tell it to disallow MAEOC, like so. And now that that is saved, it is virtually impossible for any of the search engines to find content that we put here in our assembly website. But conversely to that, I have the control to give search engines specific instructions about what to do if it comes to my website and what to do after that. Like go jump in a creek. And so we know what search engines are about, and we ourselves can make a search engine for our own system that lets us search our own content for our users. It just comes down to what requirements that we flush out from everybody's feedback. And so with that, I yield. Does that help answer your question, Betty?
Sort of. I'm not too good at this stuff, so I'm just learning. Thank you.
It's great to have questions like that, and what search engines do is, depending on the amount of money paid by certain advertisers of the search engines, they are paid to shape their traffic to give you results to your search based on the highest bidder, so to speak. And that's why you can search for something on a search engine and get all kinds of junk that's advertising related long before you find what you're really looking for. So what I would do is suggest to you that there's many other search engines that may not do that to you as much. And the question back to you, Betty, is do you have other search engines that you used besides the Google search engine?
No.
Okay. Now that would be a good topic for us to have in the assembly, would be a topic regarding how to use the internet to your best advantage. I have not wrote curriculum about that in a number of years, but I have saved everything in archive that I've ever produced. I also have a file system organization method that I would like to introduce at a later time, but so anybody can ask me that. I've been an IT computer professional since 1982. I also retired early from the business in 2008, and I have not had a day job for quite some time, 15 years. So that gives me a lot of open to work on this, and so I really appreciate all of your willingness to put up with me as we get our hands around this. And with that, I yield for any additional questions.
May I, Jim? I just kind of have a comment, not necessarily a question. Now,
yes, go for it, Kathleen.
Yep, I'm just, this is like way, way above where my head has been. We're used to handing out paper, okay? So,
yeah. Paper's good. Nothing beats the hard copy, they say.
Right, because this is more of a virtual or world for people who are computer savvy enough to be able to access and even though it seems easy enough to get through the functions that what you're showing us, the system, self-explanatory in a way if you're computer savvy at all, which most people are having to learn to be anyways. But my question to you is, have you been on, so I have two things. First, the direct management, document management server that they are creating right now, which will hold a lot of templates and things for the state of Minnesota as well as all the other states, and then other folders that you can access to gather information, learning as well as things that you can use through your process of correcting your status. So that's one area. So I'm just comparing it to the document management server that they're putting together now, in which I do believe only assembly members that are working on the pillars will have access to that. Second, if you've been on the TASA website, I do believe the Federation does have a link in there to educational videos. Maybe it's not a video, but they're education modules, and I do believe I've went through probably 10 or 12 or 15 of them, where they have it set up so that you can continue your education and learn, and each one shows you a paragraph or two, and then it gives you a quiz at the end, 1 or 2 questions, and you work your way through them. So it's not set up specific, but it's a general learning. So my question to you is if you've seen that, and I do have some other questions about what you've showed, but I want to hear your answer on those 2 things. I yield.
Yes, Kathy, I always appreciate the great questions like that. Now, one answer to the first part of this is the document management server that's being put together. I have not seen that yet, and I would like to. And I want to ask back to you, is that specific to the Minnesota Assembly? And then for the TASA Federation education modules, I've just been going and exploring that. And I've been thinking to myself, so often you can duplicate the wheel. And so often you don't need to re-engineer and duplicate the wheel. You just got to get people pointed to it. So with what's already out on the Federation and the TASA site, it's a tremendous amount of information that continues to evolve. It continues to be developed, and it's fabulous to see that much there. So to answer the question specifically, I don't want to try to get people confused that we suddenly have something newer or better. I do want to find out what the needs are in the assembly, and when it comes down to it, I would say, well, if we've got to create something for ourselves, then that's where I maybe can be of help from an education or tech committee standpoint. So let's go back to point number 1. The question, Kathy, is does the Minnesota Assembly have a current project in the works, or was this at the Federation level?
May I?
Yes.
I believe this is at the Federation level, the document server. What is the acronym there? The Document Management System, DMS. But I want to interject at this point. Our own recorders have noticed substandard items on the TASA site, so we'll have to wait and see how the document management server treats things, but they've found clear shortcomings, let's say, in some of the documents, and they've redone them all for the sake of Minnesota. And the tradition of these assemblies and these state assemblies throughout the country was that it was a big positive that everyone would be self-governing, because then you would have, nowadays, it's 50 different laboratories of governance. And we should not just all of a sudden gravitate to one because they got there first. And I think developing our own system is extremely valuable, because we can watchdog it to a T with the thought that every assembly should have is to make this the one the best in the country. And the other part of that component is no assembly should be shy to share everything that they've come up with, because that will propel the whole nation forward, the whole union of states forward that much faster. So those are the concepts that I think of when we're talking in this subject area. I yield. Did that make any sense?
Yes, Scott, that's great. That is motivation for us to start looking at platforms such as this. Some of the questions and answers that are going in the tech committee are, what would the assembly need for a system, and what kind of budget is available, and let's really talk turkey about doing a platform. And what you're all seeing today with my little presentation here is a whole lot of work done already. We are, with this kind of platform, we are at that stage where we can start to make our lists of what is some of the first things that we should be doing in our Jural assembly. And when we open our Jural assembly, what can we add for activities and resources? And as you see on the screen, there's many kinds of built-ins to go and experiment with. And I'm not saying I've got the cat's meow here by any stretch, but there isn't anything out there in this price point with this online now that I've seen. But yet in the tech committee, they're proposing that we look at a Microsoft solution that goes by the name of, the name slips the top of my mind here, being proposed by the tech committee, which is a hard drive on the internet for $23 a month. Well, this is certainly way more than just a hard drive on the internet. And I'm not going to bill anybody anything for what is here, past, present, or future. So we can look at the capabilities, Scott, to actually make our own system and possibly help offload a lot of work from what's happening to Nikki and Chris Filippi with the wonderful job they've done at the MinnesotaAssembly.net. And so we could potentially bring up MinnesotaAssembly.edu or some other domain name and make it a sister site to our current .net. And I agree, starting our own lets Minnesota have its own governance for our 87 counties. And that's the way our founding fathers brought the states into the Union. Each state had its own constitution, its own Bill of Rights, its own court system, and so on and so forth. And we states are what later in life formed any kind of states of states or any kind of federal. So if we just put things back to the original founding declarations of independence and we do what we've now done to correct our status, we are dead to right, in our right mind, to create our own system. And with that, I yield.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to do this because if we can put our best effort into this and our most thoughtful consideration to all the parts, this could be a boon to many assemblies. And that's, as I said, that's the way every assembly out there ought to be thinking. Probably there are people in every state thinking like this. I'm sure there are. Unfortunately, sometimes the exclusivists get in the way and say, we'll keep this and we'll be the best. You know, that's not the way to be the best. The way to be the best is share and upgrade from 50 laboratories of Republican form of government, self-governance. So that's where I'm at. I yield.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, I want to go one level deep, but before I do, I want to open it up for any other questions or comments.
Please. Yes.
Well, with that, what I want to show is how quickly and easily this entire system can zip up, compress, and be given to anybody. And so I don't own the source code of the system until I expand it and extract it and install it. Now, on the internet is the Moodle source code software that's free for anybody. And the current version is 277 megabytes. That is a compressed file that downloads the 277 megabytes. And when you want to download that, you get to choose a lot of details about where you're going to place it. When I started the download and installation of it, I already had the perfect place to put it. You can download Moodle from their website, or you can download it from a hosting provider that has cPanel on top of Linux with the Softaculous application installer. And what I've chose it to do is to put it in a subdirectory of my web server. Do you see that highlight right there?
Yes.
Now, that name, MAEOC, is what I just simply came up with as the acronym for Minnesota Assembly Education Outreach Committee. That name could be minnesotaAssembly.net/MAEOC if our assembly was paying for that level of system technology from our current hosting provider, which we are not. Our current website is what is known as the GoDaddy Website Builder, and in the cost structures and the confines of that system, we have limits, and one of which the limits does not let us add software such as the Moodle Learning Management System, nor does GoDaddy currently allow any such platforms of source code control on any of their paid server platforms until we start spending in the thousands of dollars, and that's outside of our budget. Now, the current system that Nicole has been working on, fabulous as it is, comes along with a steep price tag to upgrade the back end, the underpinnings, any higher than what it is now. So that faces our assembly with the challenge of, do we buy a new domain name? And I can buy one for $15 a year, and I can put an $86 server on that to rounding out at about $100 a year. So this MAEOC is nebulous at this point, but it was just the easy thing to come to mind for me. And once that's on the server, it goes into a file system structure that's a lot like the Windows directory structure. You see, I've got my public directories, and under my public directories, I've got the MAEOC, which is right there. And here, if I take my tools to compress that directory, and I take the compressed file, and I give it to anybody else that has a similar platform, they can expand it and try to use it, but they're not going to be able to log into it unless they have a username and a password. So, but I just want you to know that the capability is there for us to be a front runner in Minnesota, and perhaps have other states go, well, we want what you got. And then I can say simply, well, I'm a documenter, and I've documented the system frontwards and backwards, so I will send you the documentation for how you can boot one of these up for yourself. You won't need ours, because ours is ours, but when you have yours, you'll be able to get powered up with capabilities such as this, Scott. And I just want to plant that seed in you, that this is simple for somebody who's a technologist. And I yield.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Jim. Anybody have any comments? We've gone on quite a while now, but so if we want to maybe round up with some comments, but does anybody have any comments about what Jim has reported so far?
May I?
Yes, please.
First, we're going to
Your audio is a bit quiet.
Is it quiet?
Sorry. Yeah, your audio is very quiet.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What I was wondering is this something that we could use since each person could log into this area, and like you say, it's structured so that you can have different people having different access, kind of like the direct management server or anything else. Or when I worked at the banks, they always had where we could log in and we only had access to certain features. So would this be something that people could use, we could use also for like our jural and court?
I'm hearing background noise that's competing with you. Yes, this is something that can log in that way. Go ahead and finish your question.
I think it's Scott.
Please, everyone, mute your microphones.
So like we could use it so that we could keep the court, not only the records, but the documents that they would need to fill out, to make a claim, and it could be private, but also be able to be sent right to the court clerk, kind of like what what all these already are subcontractor service providers kind of use now, where they are able to integrate in a sense. A lot of what you're telling me or I'm hearing is over my head, but I'm just trying to, would it be a secure enough site to handle that kind of information? I yield.
That's a great question, and I appreciate it. It's a very thoughtful question, and one thing we have in life is our experiences with systems such as you mentioned that gives us the formula of the question. And yes, the Moodle system allows to have your definition of what you want. You can define a user account with permissions and roles. A user such as a student or a user such as a court litigant can create for themselves a file method where you can access what is known as your private files. And when you start to establish your private files, you then can decide who is going to be in those private files, whether that's you or a counselor or a family member or anyone who you will send the login information to either your files or your matter. So in order to answer your question, let's mock one up and let's put it through the paces and answer the questions on our screens and shape it and tailor it and adjust it. And so that I don't just give you yes, no answers, that we say, I don't know, let's find out. And let's actually make and manage some private files that are your court case documents, and let's test our backup to make sure we've got a disaster recovery in case somebody loses a file. And so our systems can be our digital assistant. And try to not make it complicated. Try to just make it basic. And the way you framed your question helps guide us to just trying to answer that with let's make it basic and let's give it a try. And let's put some documents together that will mock up. And let's make some people available to see that it actually blocks out anyone else except for who you designate. And does that give you kind of the framework that we need to give it a try and find out? I think it can. I've seen it do it.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Kathy.
That's exactly, because we will have to, once your court clerk or court secretaries or recorders, we have to have a secure place for all of that. Right now, everything is on the LRO, which is out of our hands, which won't be eventually. Each county is going to be responsible for those documents, and whether or not who has access to them. So the the document management server, I do know that they were putting in place, each state would have their own folder and would be only available to who has access to it. So I know they have that capability. I yield.
Anyone else want to chime in on this? I've got some direct comments on what Kathleen just said.
Well, I suppose just with our mock trial, if we just, could we put like everything in there and then test it out, see how it works? You know, this is just a pretend case, and just put records in there just like we would, and then we would test it out. I yield.
That's right, Betty. Following your lead, that is the kind of thing that I want us to do. We are bridging here, and so to fill in those gaps in the bridge, we've got to define some procedural, and it's going to come down to me learning what the procedurals are in a general court litigation setting. I've got my homework to do, and what I would propose is that in this system, just like I can define something known as my courses, I can define something known as my court. And so I could have my court be able to be the place where if I ever have a litigation matter that we can put up the mock trial. We can build a documentation management system toward whatever end that we hope. And the same token, I am intrigued, Kathy, to know that the Federation wants to do something at all the county levels. That's 3,300 counties, you know, give or take. And so, provided that the Federation level does not have infiltrated hands trying to mess with and govern, we govern ourselves, we govern our state, and if they're putting up a bona fide, trustworthy system that doesn't have an ulterior motive, what I would like to see is what's their timeline for going live with something, and how many people are involved, and what's, you know, what if anything is slowing them down, and what kind of cost figure has been submitted so far, and is there anyone that can speak to those questions within our assembly? And with that, I send that back to you, Kathy.
Just another comment. I do know that occasionally I hear Terry talk about that they are building things out. And I get on a call with Christy Leeper at 6 o'clock on Monday nights for a couple hours. And there's a video that she plays, about a 20-minute video that kind of explains the document management system, or server, I think they call it. And they have a calendar that's going to be on there. They also have a chat called Synology or something like that that's going to be on there, kind of functions like how Mattermost did. And I don't think it's a file for each county, but in our Minnesota file, we can create for the counties in there. So I think right now they're just trying to get all of the states, each state, the ability to have all of their documents and notices and things in one location. Now, and I've heard that it's only people that are on committees or in the help rebuilding the 4 pillars. So like there's probably only 30 of us in our assembly that are active and doing things. The rest have corrected their status but are not on a committee or an elector, and so they won't be in the direct management server unless they are building or using. So that eliminates a lot of people that will need access to information that the Minnesota Assembly should be providing for them. So just a comment. I yield.
That's a great explanation. It really gets me back to what our top priority is, and that's getting our courts up, getting our pillars up, and what we want to dice out of all of this is where are we at today? What should we be doing? Is it an education matter? Is it a communication matter? Or is it just a lack of head count to get people rolling here at home? And so if there's needs for us to put a platform together, we can suddenly say we've already got something up that needs to be built out with just our knowledge and our process and procedure. We can duplicate, we can take information that's available to us from other sources such as ANA, such as Terry, such as the Federation, other states, and we can go through our assembly people to shore up whatever is wrong in the documents and tailor it more directly to Minnesota, and then put our tailored work into our education system. And then we can just put links to the Federation documents and resources that are suitable for us and make a system for Minnesotans that's a blending together and bridging what's new to Minnesota, what's specific to Minnesota, and then what's nationwide, what's national, that's education that's suitable to get people up to speed. So we don't have to redo everything. We just focus on what is our essentials. And that would be a good bite-sized chunk for all of us to start with creating our own systems. And with that, I yield.
I've got a sort of basic question. Who built Moodle? I mean, who owns that, and where did it come from? I yield.
I love questions like that. The Moodle system is created by a wide range of educators and system technical people who have been devoted and dedicated to the open source community, and they've got a very good quality website that answers all sort of information about Moodle. And their website is just moodle.org. And inside of the Moodle.org organization website is a fabulous, easy to read compendium of all those type of thought processes and concepts. But in a nutshell, it comes down to whatever you want to educate, it gives the power to the people to become your educator of whatever it is that you want to educate, whatever content you want to make that's educational or a curriculum or a self-study, and do it in a way in which there's not licensing fees and you constantly have to re-up your annual agreement in order to keep using it. The system strips all of that away by saying that we're not greed-focused, but yet we have 47 million courses are currently served through Moodle systems. 155,000 sites are using Moodle, which a lot of them are higher ed and corporations. And 243 countries are using the platform. It's translated already into many languages. And so you'll see the list of languages that Moodle is already translated in. And when you compile and build courseware in Moodle, you can run it through the translation engines and put it in other languages pretty easily. Have I ever done that? No. Is English my only language? Yes. And so it would quickly go way over my head if I had to convert our system to another language. However, the capability is there to do so. And so it's a very well-rounded and extremely powerfully documented system. If I were consulting to build such a system for a state assembly and I needed a staff to do it, it would be $150,000 at least at a starting point for our hourly labor rates and cost of time and materials and consulting fees. So we know that there's hundreds of millions of dollars wrapped up into it to make it what it is, and it's all governed under the open source license, and the entire licensure is available to read and agree and look at disclaimers. And for us to put up a system for Minnesota Assembly, we have to have a disclaimer as well. And our disclaimer needs to take the liability off of the Minnesota Assembly for the kinds of things that we cannot provide. So I'll let the other leadership of our assemblies help guide that. And if we don't have a disclaimer, we can open ourselves up to being accused of doing things that we are not doing, like such as providing professional, competent legal advice. And so Moodle has figured out how to get all those considerations, and they've made this a platform that's interoperable between all sort of platforms. And so if we wanted to write an interface between our Moodle system and some other platform technology system, we could do it. However, today we're just the Minnesota Assembly with 87 counties, so let's try and keep it simple. And with that, I yield. I'm open to other questions or comments, and we're going late. I can go late. I'm coming up to my end of day, however.
Have you run this by Chris and Nicole?
Yes, great question. My questions to Nicole at a 40-minute phone conversation a week or so ago was not an on-screen presentation of what I have. My questions to her was about the current platform, and I was able to flesh out what she's doing and not doing, and what she doesn't want to do and what she does want to do. And running and administrating this kind of system is not Nicole's bailiwick, which is why I'm proposing a secondary system that does not put more work on her plate. And so coming under that framework, she's open to this. And so this type of discussion can involve the tech committee and eventually could involve every committee, especially the committees that want to educate committee members on what the committee is doing. This system can be one where we put education and outreach together to build the committee with the knowledge the committees need to do their functions, as well as calendaring and scheduling and meetings and so on. And I would like to have a broader presentation with this system. And so as we get the yes, let's do it from our Education and Tech Committee, then we can start to get that on the calendar and get more participation from our committee and familiarity. And I'd like to get the committee so everyone in our committee has a sign-on to this platform, a name, a user account, so that our user management is able to show who's all here and who's aware of it. And so, for example, I can go into user management under user accounts, and I can decide, oops, I'm in the wrong one. Let me get over to the right one here. Today I've got a demonstrator user account that has the rights to create a class. I've got me as a manager administrator. I put Mary Grock in there with manager course creator, and I put Scott Pankow in there with administrator, co-administrator, manager, course creator. And it's got basic high-level information of who is in the system. And so if people in our education committee want to embrace a platform that's up and running now, this is here. And so I can make the system so you can sign up for yourself, but I don't want to do that yet because once that's turned on, I don't want to have just anybody get signed in. I want to take the reins of the starting of this so that we advance it progressively and scale it with some thought and some pre-thought and some foreknowledge. And so I could add anybody in our education committee and give you a username and password and some permissions to the system and then give you the go-ahead to log in and start seeing if you can embrace the learning curve. And to learn Moodle, there's a lot of YouTube videos, but there's also just the go in and click each button, and when you've read what that screen does, back to the next. Back up to the one you came from and click the next. And just teach yourself the system, which is the best way to use it. And so I'm going to try to make the system so it's not overwhelming with buttons to click. And with that, I yield. I'm open for questions. I'm sorry.
More like a comment. I know if you talked to Nicole, who has been creating, and between her and Chris working on our website that we have, I know it was brought up that we don't know how long that website can stay functioning, because we don't know what'll happen to GoDaddy, or if anything should ever happen. So that's not like having our own server. So does this handle like a website option so that we would be in charge of that website and not a different server?
Yes, 100% it does. In fact, I wanted to possibly mimic the Minnesota Assembly website on this platform, but not infringing on the copyrights and trademarks of the GoDaddy website builder. And so GoDaddy was saying, in order to rebuild the Minnesota website assembly onto something else besides website builder, they had a minimum fee that they were charging, and I think it's exorbitant. So what I'm proposing is to work closely with Nicole, the tech committee, and whoever to recreate the Minnesota Assembly website on our own hosted platform that we're in control of. But my question to Nicole is, what other web technology platforms is she experienced with besides what she now uses, her and Chris are now using? I don't know those answers, but I'd like to find out, and I yield.
Well, I think that this is something as broad. I realize it can be very useful in a sense for the education and outreach. It could be useful for the Jural Assembly. We could use it in several ways. I can see the potential, but I believe this is something that we should probably have the whole General Assembly learn and propose to them, so that everybody has a say in how everything is going to lay out for the state. I yield. What do you guys think, Doc and Scott?
Oh, may I? Yeah. I was on the tech committee with Jonathan and Kane and Voodoo, and those guys really, they knew what they were doing. They'd been doing it for years. I think the less the General Assembly is involved in in IT type questions, or how do I put it? Most of us don't know enough about it to ask even intelligent questions or get hung up on security or different issues. My honest opinion is, well, like I said at one of the Mille Lacs meetings, give the geeks the money and they'll come up with the best use for it. They're the most qualified. I mean, that's what we have them on that committee for. That's just my opinion. I think it's good to get some input. It's fine to get some input, but or ideas, but step back then and let the committee do it and present what they've got. And then if there was some real concern, they could bring it up. I mean, if there was something really in error, yeah, bring it up. But it's not like it's right or wrong and you can't please everybody and too many cooks spoil the broth. It slows the whole process down horribly. With that, I yield.
May I?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I take to heart what you're saying about that. I know we got bogged down last time about security questions, but here's the thing. Jim has joined our education committee because he saw the potential for this. I would suggest we keep this a little bit under our belt for a while and develop, maybe learn it somewhat, maybe develop a couple of courses in there and see how it works. And it just so happens our tech committee is led by Jim Homiak now too, right? He stood up and like Chester pointed out, except for Shane, our other two tech dudes haven't been hardly at a meeting in a year and haven't responded or hardly been on a call. So I think it's a wide open field to do it again. We can keep it, not throw it out to the General Assembly right away. So maybe perhaps in the future if we expand it into the courts and other things, but we want to get facile with it for quickly and yet surely and try it out in a few of some of the functions like putting together coursework and building out the accessible, those accessible, what do you call it?
Features.
Features, yeah. Who at what level gets into what and so on like that. Describing those roles and statuses and relationships, the information. It's a little bit foggy, but you know what I'm talking about. That's all pretty much I had to say. Whatever you think. I yield.
I certainly am on board with that thought process there, Scott. We've got a power tool here, and we have a small, close-knit group that we all have our experiences, talents, ideals, and if we can just distill, we've been through a lot together. And I've come up on 2 years as a state national, and I've had my own problems that have made me stop and start. But I know I'm stable enough to keep at it, Lord willing, I hope. And so to have us just distill out what our top priorities are and who are the first ones that we should give some permissions into the system and start defining some roles and building some courseware and setting up some of our court procedurals. If we will just put a stake in the ground and start with something, we can marshal everyone behind and then start to schedule meetings to evaluate together what our current status is. And I'm trying to say something like by early April. Give us a month maybe, or maybe that's not fast enough. But to actually put some accountabilities to trying this system or putting it behind us if it's just not going to work. And so I have every belief that we can meet a lot of needs from a tech and education perspective. And with that, I yield.
All right, thank you, Jim. What would be our next move? Because I'd like to kind of bring this to a close if we could, if everybody's agreeable. What would be the next move to do?
For me, I want some names and who to add some user account permissions.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Next move, I think, since Chris and Nicole, they have been pretty much the leaders in content and what the state of Minnesota is seeing, you know, and what they have put in there, how they have organized things, and how things have been functioning for them. I think it would be a good idea to bring them into our meeting, either at Q&A or our education outreach meeting next Wednesday with Jim, and present this to them the same way he has us, so that we all can get on board with the functioning and how this could benefit us having everything that we need in one place, and our communication being much more integrated that way.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Spot on.
Yeah, and any of the other IT people that we have. You know, if we can have them come to our meeting, or we can go to their meeting, whatever works for them. Just so that we all can see it, visualize it, and we, as the education outreach, if we want to pursue this Moodle software, I guess you'd call it, this Moodle app, and use it through the education and outreach to see how it's functioning for a little while, like you say, get some users in there.
Yes. That's a great proposal. I'm in favor of that.
The last email Chris put out. Yeah, he said that he wanted to do some education courses, and he had them all laid out in the last email that he sent out.
Who said that?
Chris Filippi.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Chris will be doing the education of... Sorry, yeah, Chris will be putting the education out for the courts. Definitely want him to take the lead in that section. I yield.
Correct. He had put out a call for anybody could find any kind of documentation in the congressional records or things that they can find that pertain to Minnesota and being state, you know, in the union, when it was adopted into the union, any information we can find. So I had been researching that, but he listed all kinds of information. I don't know, that page or that email that he sent out must have been, I don't know, 200 pages long, all the information that he sent on that. So yes, I think it's important that Chris, you know, since they do the majority of loading that kind of information in, we have our education information too, but it's nowhere near what Chris has. So I yield.
I sure like the sounds of that. Depending on how advanced and involved he gets, they would have to code that in HTML or do some internet programming or attach documents as whatever document style it is, which they've already been doing at the website, so I know they know how to do that. So yes, next Wednesday's meeting would be great for them to take a look at this and decide if they can see how this platform can help them structure an education mission, and doing a lot of the underpinning plumbing work for them on a server that we control instead of at the whims of others. I yield.
May I?
Yes.
I really like the idea of Chris, of course, doing the education work on the on the litigation and General Assembly leg. As far as the general education for newbies and ongoing education for members, that's going to be just as big, although the law stuff can get pretty involved. That's going to be just as big, and I think that should stay under the Education Committee for the most part. And we already have quite a bit of material on that. We just haven't put it into the website on mass. But I like the idea of putting it into this new platform that Jim has brought forth, and designing it where it's user friendly, and we can bring people from first contact all the way up to a doctorate in self-governance and the understanding of the true history. I yield.
That would be just a great course for people, and for the course itself to keep you on track as a student, and reminding you, you passed your last exam, and here's your grade, and here's how to get into the next module, and you can lay it out like that so that you're keeping their interest, you're rewarding them, and you're leading them to the next, or whatever, forward to the next or somewhere else. That's the kind of tool that I want to have, and I think we may very likely have it here, folks. So I'm very excited about it. So that's how I feel. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. And all right, does that about do it? We can invite Chris and Nicole next Wednesday to our meeting.
Do you want to send out a letter to him, or do you want me to?
Either way, you're welcome to. We want to invite him. You're doing the notes. You probably will have some of the verbiage all ready to go. You could send him the invitation. How's that?
Well, on our Q&A, I just kind of go over the highlights of what we have done. I don't really take minutes.
Okay.
How about if I go ahead and invite them then?
Sure. It's all recorded, though, so they can actually come back. They could actually preview. You could say, Jim, that the Q&A was recorded, and everything that we've done tonight, they could see. So they can.
Great idea.
Yeah. Because I will send it up to Nicole. She'll see it because she gets them and she posts them on the website.
Okay, then what I want to say is my server is at the website, which is a private server, and the address is homiacsystems.net, and the Education LMS Learning Management System is at /MAEOC. And at this stage, they will not be able to log in and utilize the system until I make a user sign-on for them. And so I just want that in the record that we're going to be wanting to communicate with them to get that information. I can tell it verbally or send it by email. And so I would want the preference for what email address that they would like me to send a username and a password, a temporary credential to use the system. And with that, I yield.
I would send it to Nicole. Kathy, could you send Nicole's email address to James then? To Jim?
I can, yes.
Thanks.
But I will send her the minutes from tonight's meeting as well as this video audio file. And then I will let her know that we'd like to either have them both review this presentation and then come to our meeting next Wednesday for discussion.
Perfect.
Very good. Thanks so much.
I think
Bully.
I'll send you her address. So if you have more,
I have Nikki Filippi at yahoo.com.
You have Carissa's
Let me see.
or Nicole's? Let me see.
Yes,
I
Nicole.
only have Nicole.
Yeah, Yahoo. That's her. Yep. That's who you can send any information to. Yep.
Okay, Nikki Filippi at yahoo.com, and I will create a limited functionality as if they were a student or a manager to create courseware, and I will make a sign-on for both of them under the same system that I demonstrated to us all tonight.
Okay. We'll see if they have time to get to it. They're building a house, so sometimes it takes some time. But if we get it sent out, I'll get it sent out tonight to her.
Another thing that I've done, can I take just a 2-minute sidebar conversation?
Okay.
Now, at the Homiac Systems website, it's a whole bunch of stick figures, okay? And am I still screen sharing?
Yes.
All right. And so Homiac's Virtual Systems has a complete owner-builder project management system for how to build your own house and how to manage every aspect of your home construction project, frontwards and backwards. And so the reason I bring that up is if somebody wants to build your own house, you've got the power of the internet there to help keep all your subcontractors online and keep all your product selections going and keep all your documentation going. And like, for example, when you have contractors and subcontractors, you've got your finished carpentry, and when you put in all your details of your finished carpentry, the system will email the finished carpenter the piece of project that you want him to make a bid on, and so on and so forth. So I've been at this for a long time, and the website that I have produced is powerful enough to be a replacement for the Minnesota Assembly technology. And so when we have that opportunity, I will be happy to help them embrace the education aspect of this. And with that, I yield.
Thank you
Well,
so much, Jim. This has been great. You know, and
Okay.
and I do believe that every state should have their own server and rely on the corporations to provide that for us. So
Yes, we are what you call an unincorporated business organization. We're a UBO that's operated and owned by state nationals and state citizens, and we are exempted from the statutory legislative system because we govern ourselves to a much higher standard.
perfect. Perfect. Okay.
Yay, us.
All right. Well, we have a lot to think about. My brain is just spinning. So, okay. We'll call it a night. I'll get an
Beautiful.
email, and I'm going to stop the recording at this time.